When my first two boys were little, we were driving one day here in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis, and we pulled up to a light just in time to witness and be almost part of a drag race between two young guys in a car. And it was a full-on drag race as the light turned green. And something inside of me was angry. And the reason I was angry was I felt protective as a father because I had two young children in the back seat. And these young men didn't realize that in their fun, they were actually putting other people's lives in danger. In fact, I followed them into a subdivision and I rolled down my window and I let them know what I thought about what they were doing. And of course, they were first of all, surprised that someone followed them and gave them a hard time that wasn't the police, but they were very respectful. And I pointed out that my two young boys were in the back seat and they potentially had put them in harm's way. I think sometimes as Christians, we like to talk about the fact that God is love, but we forget that God also is a righteous judge. And so we tend to enjoy talking about John chapter 3, verse 16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. But Leonard Ravenhill, a great author and preacher from the 1900s, sounds weird to say, but that's what we have to call it now, said this: we like to talk about God's love, but we can't forget, I'm paraphrasing, that Psalm chapter 7, verse 11 says this: God is an honest judge. Listen to this. He is angry with the wicked every day. Now, what we have to understand is that God's anger is not like human anger. It's not like if you're frustrated, because someone in front of you is not going fast enough, or you're frustrated at, standing in line at a grocery store. No, God's anger is a righteous anger connected to his character, which is holiness. In fact, we can't fully appreciate God's love if we don't fully understand his holiness, and that with that holiness comes his righteous anger at sin and wickedness. In fact, the Bible says in Romans chapter 1, verse 18, that God actually shows his anger from heaven against all sinful, wicked people who suppress the truth by their wickedness. So as Christians, as followers of Jesus, yes, we want to celebrate the fact that God is love, but we also want to be careful that we don't overemphasize that to the point where we forget, as Psalm 7:11 says, that he is a righteous judge and he's angry with the wicked every day. In fact, if you read on from Romans chapter 1, verse 18 through the rest of the chapter, you'll see that there is a whole list of things that mankind does that provokes God's righteous anger. This isn't a message that we maybe hear as much as we should here in the church, but it's one that's desperately needed in our day, because that desire that we have for justice actually comes from God, and he cannot be fully loving if he's not fully righteous, which means that he is angry with the wickedness and sinfulness of man. I hope you found that encouraging today. If you did, let me know in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next one.